The final week of Jesus' earthly life is the most powerful and meaningful sequence of events in human history. It begins with hope, moves through betrayal and sacrifice, and ends with the victory of an empty tomb. Every day of this week is filled with purpose. Every moment fulfills prophecy. Every step reveals the depth of God's love. This week begins when Jesus enters Jerusalem, not as a warrior, but as a humble king. Matthew 21:5 quotes the ancient prophecy, "Behold, thy king cometh unto thee, meek, and sitting upon an ass." The crowd gathers, waving palm branches and crying, "Hosanna in the highest." Their voices rise with joy as they welcome the one they believe will save them. This celebration marks the beginning of the final journey, a journey that changes everything. After entering the city, Jesus goes straight to the temple. Matthew 21:12 tells how he cast out the money changers and overturned their tables. He said, "My house shall be called the house of prayer." This bold act was more than a cleansing. It was a declaration that the heart of worship must be pure. The religious leaders watched him closely. They saw his authority and the devotion of the people, and their anger grew. But Jesus continued teaching. Children shouted praises, saying, "Hosanna to the Son of David," and he received their worship. As evening approached, he returned to Bethany, a quiet village near Jerusalem. The sun set on the first day of the final week, a day filled with prophecy fulfilled and hearts stirred. On the next day, Jesus returned to the city early in the morning. Along the road he saw a fig tree with leaves, but no fruit. Matthew 21:19 records that he said, "Let no fruit grow on thee henceforward forever." The tree withered away. This moment symbolized Israel's spiritual condition, outward appearance without inward truth. The fig tree became a living picture of what happens when faith has leaves but no fruit. Jesus entered the temple again and taught boldly. He spoke parables that revealed truth and exposed hypocrisy. The religious leaders challenged him, questioned him, and tried to trap him with their words. But his answers carried wisdom that silenced them. That evening, he returned once more to Bethany, spending the night away from the noise of the city. The next day brought intense teaching. Jesus spoke of the kingdom of heaven, the coming judgment, and the greatest commandment. In Matthew 22:37, he declared, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind." He warned the people about false leadership and empty religion. He pointed out the poor widow who gave 2 mites, explaining in Mark 12:44 that she gave all she had. In that simple moment, he showed that God values the heart more than the amount. Later, Jesus and his disciples left the temple. He looked back at the magnificent building and said in Matthew 24:2, "There shall not be left here one stone upon another." He then shared what is known as the Olivet Discourse, describing future events, the signs of his return, and the need for readiness. This day was filled with truth, warning, and hope. In the shadows of this week, something dark was forming. The chief priests and scribes held secret meetings to plan Jesus' death. Matthew 26:4 says they consulted that they might take Jesus by subtlety and kill him. At the same time, Jesus stayed in Bethany, where a woman anointed his head with precious ointment. Some criticized her, but Jesus said in Matthew 26:12, "She did it for my burial." He knew what was coming. The cross was drawing near. In those quiet moments, love and betrayal were working side by side, and soon one of his closest disciples would make a devastating choice. Judas Iscariot went to the chief priests and agreed to betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. Matthew 26:15 records the chilling question he asked, "What will ye give me?" This betrayal did not come from an enemy outside. It came from someone who had walked with Jesus for years, someone who had seen miracles and heard every teaching, yet he chose darkness over light. Meanwhile, Jesus prepared his disciples for the Passover. The stage was set for one of the most meaningful gatherings in history. The final supper was approaching, a moment filled with symbolism and eternal truth. On the night of the Passover, Jesus sat with his disciples in an upper room. Matthew 26:26 says, "He took bread, blessed it, broke it, and gave it to them, saying, 'Take, eat. This is my body.' Then he took the cup, saying, 'This is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sins.'" In this quiet room, surrounded by those he loved, Jesus gave a gift that would be remembered for all generations. The Last Supper became a picture of his sacrifice, a covenant of grace sealed with his blood. But the evening carried heaviness. Jesus revealed that one of them would betray him. The disciples were sorrowful and asked, "Lord, is it I?" Judas slipped away into the night, stepping further into the darkness he had chosen. After the supper, Jesus went with his disciples to the Garden of Gethsemane. The night was still. The olive trees stood silent. Jesus asked his closest companions to watch and pray. Matthew 26:38 records, "His words, 'My soul is exceeding sorrowful, even unto death.' He moved a little further, fell on his face, and prayed, 'O my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt.'" This prayer revealed the depth of his obedience and the weight of the sacrifice that was coming. While he prayed, the disciples slept. Human weakness contrasted with divine strength. Then footsteps broke the silence. Judas arrived with soldiers and religious leaders carrying lanterns, torches, and weapons. He approached Jesus and gave him a kiss, the sign of betrayal. Matthew 26:50 records Jesus' words, "Friend, wherefore art thou come?" The soldiers seized Jesus. Peter tried to defend him with a sword, but Jesus told him to put it away. He reminded Peter that he could call for 12 legions of angels, but the scriptures had to be fulfilled. From that moment on, Jesus submitted willingly. He was taken from Gethsemane into the long night of trials, accusations, and suffering. Jesus faced a series of trials through the night. He stood before the high priest, the council, and then the Roman governor Pilate. False witnesses were brought forward, yet their words did not agree. Pilate found no fault in him, but the crowd cried out for his death. The same city that had welcomed him with Hosanna now shouted, "Crucify him!" He was scourged, mocked, and crowned with thorns. The soldiers placed a robe on him and bowed in false worship. John 19:5 shows Pilate presenting him to the people, saying, "Behold the man." But the cries for crucifixion grew louder. The plan of the final week was moving toward the cross. Jesus carried his cross toward Golgotha. The weight pressed on his shoulders, yet he continued forward. At the place called Calvary, they crucified him between two thieves. Nails pierced his hands and feet. Above his head, the inscription read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." As he hung there, he spoke words of forgiveness, saying in Luke 23:34, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Darkness covered the land from the 6th hour to the 9th hour. Then Jesus cried with a loud voice, "It is finished," and they gave up the ghost. The earth shook. The veil of the temple was torn from top to bottom. The sacrifice had been made. Jesus' body was taken down and placed in a borrowed tomb. A stone was rolled across the entrance, and soldiers stood guard. The final week seemed to end in silence, but it was not the end. Early on the first day of the week, the tomb was found empty. He had risen. The final week of Jesus did not end with death. It ended with victory that no power on earth could stop. The angel said in Matthew 28:6, "He is not here, for he is risen." The same Jesus who entered Jerusalem in humility, who taught with compassion, who suffered and died in obedience, rose again with eternal glory. This final week is the foundation of Christian faith. Every day reveals love stronger than sin, sacrifice deeper than suffering, and hope greater than death. The story begins with palm branches and ends with an empty tomb, and its message is eternal.